Hello and welcome to another video on Lightning.js with Solid. Today's video is going to focus on deploying to a Tizen TV. So I have a Samsung TV and I'm going to walk you through all the steps to get your Lightning application or web application running on a Samsung TV. And to start, there's lots of documentation under Samsung, under Tizen. Um, and we are going to go through the steps of getting this running using the Visual Studio Code extension. So just so you know, I spent a few days doing all the research, exploring the different ways of getting this running. The Tizen IDE is based on Eclipse, which is over 10 years old, and it's just very frustrating to do development on that and even to use that as a build tool. So after spending some time getting the VS Code extension to work, I found that that was much more reliable and easier to get going. So let's get started with that. So Tizen has a bunch of documentation available. I get very confused as to which website you're actually supposed to go to because there's this Tizen website, there's a Samsung version, there's a forum. But anyway, with that, you can go to getting started with the Visual Studio Code application. There is a link that you can go to install the VS Code extension, but here I have it already installed. But you can actually just go Command-Shift-P and go to extensions, install extensions, and then there is a Tizen extension. Um, this one, Tizen extension, has 200, I think it has 24,000 installs. So when you install this, what will happen is it's going to add this icon over here for Tizen, and you're going to get all these little options up here. Okay, so that's step one is get VS Code, get it installed, and then you're going to have all these Tizen tools. Now, when you first click on these, something may or may not happen because it installs the extension, but it doesn't actually install the CLI and the SDK. I don't know why they have multiple names for it, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to click on Device Manager. And the first time, if it's not installed, it should pop up with a window saying, do you want to install the SDK? And just go through that. And in fact, let's actually go through that. There's a package manager. So I'm going to open up the package manager, and this takes a while to run and kind of come up because I don't know all the magic that it's doing. But there are a lot of different packages for Tizen that you can install, and a lot of it is because you can do TV app development, you can do smartphone development, you can do their watch development. There's like a lot of different things that they do. So it's pretty complicated in their regard. So here's their package manager. So by default, when this installs, it should install Tizen 9. And somehow you want to go into this. I click the view installed packages. You want web app development to be installed. And then there's another one for extension SDK. You got to go into here and you got to install the TV extensions. If you don't install the TV extensions, you can't create a TV app project. So once this is installed and the main SDK is installed, you should have everything that you need to make things work. So here again is all my things that I have installed. And I also assume that the 9.0 Tizen is backwards compatible with older versions of the Samsung Studio. So it basically gives you an environment, but all the config and everything that it does should be backwards compatible. If that's not right, please someone leave a comment. But it should be backwards compatible. I'm on a Tizen 5.5 device using the 9.0 package, and it seems to work fine. So once all these packages are installed, and this comes up because you installed the SDK, then you should be in good shape. What this allows you to do is, now we can close this out. It always asks, do you want to launch the Tizen Studio, which we do not. It gives you the ability to create a project. Now, I already have a project created, but I'm going to walk you through these steps just so that you can follow along and do something similar. So I'm using the Solid Demo app. So for those who aren't aware, the Solid Demo app's open source. It's completely free. It's written with Lightning JS 3 and Solid. So it's available. It's a hosted URL, but you can also install it and run it locally. And I have that open in my VS Code. And in here, I then went and did create a project. and this is going to pop up with what type of projects you have. So we want a web project, and then you'll get the TV Samsung here. If you don't install the web extensions, you will not see TV Samsung. So we go into this, you can select your different version, and then I did a basic empty, and then it's going to ask you for the name, which I just called that Tizen. And so what I did in my project for this solid demo app is now I have all my code here, my normal code, and then it created this Tizen folder, and this is all the build stuff that's happening for the Tizen application. I'll walk through that in a few minutes, but just know that it's going to create this. It's going to create this config.xml, and it's going to give you a blank project inside of this folder. And the cool part is we're going to build and drop what we build into this for our deployment, which we're going to go through in a few minutes. So that is the installation and setup of Tizen. I'm hoping I can just hit escape and get out of that. There we go. I'm going to go back into here. And now we want to connect to our TV. Well, actually, we don't want to. There's also another first time setup with this certificate manager. So this is another little thing that you want to run. You only have to do this once, but this creates a certificate so that you sign your package so that it will actually run on the TV device. I'm not going to walk through it too much. You basically just go in, create a new certificate, type in the information that you have for your name and your project, save it, and then once it's in your profile, this should just work. I didn't have any problems once I had a certificate. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to connect to your TV device. And that's where this device manager comes up. Once we switch over to launching the TV, I'll show you what you need to do on the TV to enable this. But you'll see that I have it enabled. I actually have it connected. The connection's on. But this will actually come up with like, what is the IP address? You're going to need to know the IP address of your TV. And you can add a new device by just clicking this little plus here, putting in the device information, and saving it. And so now that I'm connected, you can see the IP address of my TV. It's also important to note that I am on a home network, so it's much easier to connect to this and connect my laptop to it. There are steps for enabling developer mode on the TV device, which is essentially go to the app screen, press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your remote. It will turn on developer mode. It will ask you for the IP address of your computer, which you will enter in and then save it. And it's very important that if you have trouble connecting, make sure you go back into that developer and the IP address that you entered matches the IP address of the computer you're trying to connect to. Because otherwise, it doesn't give you an error message or anything. It's just like, nope, can't connect. So again, right now I am connected in the device manager. I can actually close this out because all this device manager and CLI stuff is kind of running in the background. So even though I close this out, we can go back into VSCode, and we have this little tab here that says connected device. You can click refresh, but I am currently connected to my TV. So at this point, we have everything in place to now run our application on the device. I've just noticed they spelled certificate wrong in that little pop-up message. You could probably rewind and check that out. But here now we have our options of the different actions that we can take. So I have the solid demo app, and the first thing that you have to do is you have to build the solid demo app. And what I did in my package.json is I added another build process, so build for Tizen devices, where I'm doing basically the standard build, but I'm setting the base to just be // because how this works on a Tizen device is it loads it locally. So it's not actually like a hosted URL. So all the positions to images and fonts need to be relative to the application. So you need to use relative paths. And this base sets the base in Vite so that it has the right paths to images and stuff. I'm also setting the out directory to go into the Tizen folder that we created. And I set empty out directory to false so that it keeps all the original config stuff in there. Okay, so from here, what we can do is I can open up the terminal. And I already did a build. But if you just do the build with build pnpm build Tizen, that's going to run this v command, and it's going to put all the files that we need inside of the Tizen directory. So we go into our Tizen here, we can see the build, we have the debug, it has all of our project files inside of assets. So that v command built these assets, which is our project, the solid demo app, and we also have this font, so it copied this over. At this point, we are ready to launch this on the TV device. Now, the interesting thing about my setup is this external monitor that we're looking at is also my Samsung monitor. And I will put information about what type of monitor it is, but it's a 32-inch USB-C type monitor that also provides power. I really like it. And so once we run this, it will switch over. I'm going to apply my camera so you can see it. But we're going to go again into here, and we're just going to click Run Project. And what's going to happen in our output, I'm just going to click Run Project. I'll bring open the camera. So there's the camera for the monitor. It's now running, and it's automatically going to switch over to Solid Demo App loading. And there we go. There is our demo app up and running on the TV. Now I have the remote control right here. Now this one doesn't have all the fancy keys, but I can press and we'll notice magic. It's working. Now this took me a few days to get this demo and this video prepared and figure out all the steps and all the debugging. So I'm very happy to get to this. And I'm going to spend a few more minutes going into the different issues that I had and some of the steps that you have to debug. But everything that I know of is working. We can switch between pages, pressing the keys, and as fast as I press them, they're kind of moving, which is great. So we'll go back to trending. You'll also notice that in the top right, I have the SPS. Let me actually switch over to full camera mode so you can see this better. But you can see the FPS is keeping at above almost 50 frames per second, even as I navigate down. So I'm going to press this really quickly, and we're still above 30 frames per second, which is very impressive with Lightning being able to load all these images and render at above 30 frames per second and keeping this UI very smooth. So again, that's why we do Lightning.js development. Okay, so hopefully that gives us a good, I got this up and running, it's full screen. Now I'll go into some of the issues that I had. One of the issues that I had was I was using the Tizen Studio, and I probably had an older version. And rather than having the mouse be able to navigate like a keyboard, it was actually coming up with a pointer on the screen, and it was moving it like a mouse. And I couldn't disable that no matter what I tried. Loading the newer version of Tizen, which has a whole different profile and stuff, that actually fixed it. So that made the bug go away, and I'm very happy about that. That's all I can say. So now I'm going to go into debugging, because debugging is actually something else that's very difficult on this screen. So let's go back into this view, and I'm going to switch the monitor. So I got to click on the home screen. So you can see this is now running on there, and I can go back to my USB-C input on the TV. So we'll go here, and now this is actually my screen, and I will hide the camera. So what I want to do is debug project, and this is a fun one. So I'm just going to go over here, click on debug project, and it's gonna launch it again. And I will bring up the camera again. And this is a fun problem because it's very important to be able to debug your application. And what's going to happen now is it launches this browser window in Chrome, which I have like Chrome 130 or so on my MacBook. So I'm using Mac. And the issue is you can't actually run the inspector with this. And the problem is that you need an older version of Chromium in order to launch the inspector. So what I had to do was download Brave. So someone recommended using Brave because they have all the different versions on the GitHub. So I downloaded that. I will have that link in the description on this video. And then once this comes up, I right click on here. I go view page source, and I'm only doing that just so that I can grab this URL here. I can copy it. And now what I can do, let me turn off that cam or the screen for a second so I can actually see what I got to do here. So now we have this Brave browser, which just was the previous version that I have up. I'm going to hit enter on here. So I'm pasting this into Brave. So again, this is Brave, and this is like Brave version 78. So, and they keep the same versions as Chromium, but I entered that URL in, and now you can see that I have full debugging access. I have a console, I have sources, I have network. I can actually reload this. Let's show that real quick. So if I go on network tab, I'll bring back up the camera. And if I select this window and reload, you see that the TV reloaded with the screen. I have all the assets. And now I'm in a position where I can actually debug the application on the device, which is kind of critical. So I think that is all that I want to cover with this, and I will go through some of the other gotchas that I had. But that is how you do debugging. And another issue that you're going to have is like I installed Brave and it auto updates. So I have actually not closed out the Brave browser because if I close it and reopen it, it's going to have a new version and this probably won't work anymore. So you keep the install, make sure you delete it all the time, re-add it, and that's one thing that you're going to have to do. So now I'm going to spend a few minutes going into talking about the different setups that you can do with Tizen, a hosted application. So right now, all the files and assets that we have are running on the TV device. So they're actually being installed on the TV device. The other thing that you could do is you could actually have it hosted. Before I fully switch out of this, I just want to show if you go into the apps menu, which this is the apps menu. So here's apps. You have to go into here and you have to enter, I'm in develop mode. You can see develop mode at the top. But if you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, totally not working for me, probably because I'm already connected to it. But you should be able to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it should come up with the develop screen. And the develop screen allows you to turn it on and off and set the IP address of the computer that you want to connect to. And the only way this works for me is I actually have a physical keyboard connected to that screen, which that's how I'm putting in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because my remote control does not have numbers on it. I'm not sure how you're supposed to do it. I think there's a keyboard that you can add on, or that will come up, but that also doesn't seem to be working for me either. So it was fun. It's fun figuring out how to make all this stuff work. So let's go back into the USB-C. Go over some other gotchas that I had. And I think the biggest gotcha was playing around with this config.xml and the content security policy. So this is the big thing you want to make sure is inside of your configuration, because I'm making calls to an API, the TMDB, and in order to do that, you need to tell the application like allow this. This is not a security risk. So I had to add connect to this, and I also had to add connect to the image endpoint for TMDB. Otherwise, none of the images were loading. So these are some of the things that I had to debug. And I also added this worker source because Lightning.js uses an image worker to load all of the images and get them to display on the screen. So I think with that, I've covered everything. I have written up the documentation for how to do this as well. So you can find that on the Solid website. There's a documentation link here. Deploying to Tizen devices. So I will put this link in there, which contains all the links of where to find the Brave browser, where to find documentation for installing the Samsung. But I think that covers everything. Like always, if you have more questions or comments or concerns, do leave them. I do read the comments. Happy to produce more videos, but hope this helps everybody out there who wants to build Tizen applications. And you know, always when you finish, there's always one more thing that you want to say. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm using Tizen 5.5 as my monitor. This will go back to older versions depending on Solid.js, and I had to tweak that in my vconfig. So in here, you can actually figure out what your target is for your target device, set the Chrome version to whatever version you have to support, and then do the build to make it work with those different versions. But you shouldn't have any problem going back to at least Tizen 4. Tizen 3 is when you need to do stuff without polyfills, without proxy, which I actually put up a link about building for legacy devices on the website as well. So with that, again, please Please like, thumbs up. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a comment and happy to produce another video. Take care.